So yesterday we told you about how China is getting into the semiconductor production game. Well, now China is doubling down as it enters the space race as well. Yep. Space race. Yesterday, China successfully launched a rocket into space from the sea. By the way, they are not alone. The space race is getting kind of crowded these days. Here now is News with Rick Sanchez correspondent Michele Greenstein. This is fascinating. What's China doing? What have they done? And what do they plan to do?
Well, the event that you speak of in the Yellow Sea was the first time that China ever conducted an offshore rocket launch. This was a joint production with the private industry, if you will. And now China is joining the U.S. and Russia as the countries that have the ability to launch rockets from the sea. Although China is the only one to have done so with technology that they solely own and operate, since U.S. and Russia did this in partnership with other countries. Additionally, China is expanding its private rocket business. President Xi loosened the government monopoly on space launches, and so you're starting to see private launches take off as well. China also wants to build a solar power station in space, and scientists have already started construction of this experimental base in China. Pretty big news, right? Additionally, China aims to build its own space station by 2022, and this is a facility that will be used for research in things like biology and physics as well. But most significantly, at least to people who follow the space wars, is that earlier this year, China landed on the far side of Earth's only satellite on the moon, the dark side of the moon, as we like to call it. And this is the first spacecraft in history to ever achieve landing there.
So what is with this fascination? Because like I said, they're not alone. China, the United States, Russia, India, Israel. I mean, take them one at a time if you have to.
Well, as part of the U.S.'s rush back to the moon, if you will, NASA says that it's going to spend $250 million hiring private missions to the moon. So a lot of these companies like Astrobotic, Intuitive Machines, and Orbit Beyond are getting these contracts for missions in the next couple of years. What I find interesting, though, is that the FCC has given SpaceX permission to launch thousands of satellites into low orbit around the Earth to guess what? Beam 5G at the Earth. These satellites are going to use the same type of antennas that the 5G systems on the ground use. And as we've talked about multiple times on this show, this microwave radiation is harmful to human health. It's harmful to the environment. And this is radiation that is strong enough to pass through human flesh if it needs to. So if you're in a crowded location like an airport or something, there may be thousands of these radiation beams flying through any environment that you're in. Additionally, last week it came out that the DoD is banning any space launch or satellite cooperation with Russia in 2023. So they expanded their list of countries that we cannot cooperate when it comes to space with.
This comes right back to what I was just talking to Jim Jatras about. There was a time when the United States and Russia and China were kind of trying to come up with some kind of détente, some kind of accord, right? Even when it came to things such as what happened after World War II.
Right.
Same thing could be said about space.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that, because this really goes all the way back to 1957, right, when the Soviets launched the first satellite into space. And we were so interested in beating them or like beating them to the moon that we actually partnered with Nazi scientists to launch NASA to, you know, compete with them. But back to this DoD thing, basically, we used to not be able to partner with China, North Korea, Iran, Sudan, or Syria. Now Russia has been added to this list.
But my point is, Russia was our partner in space. They've been our partner in space for something like 2 decades. And suddenly we've decided no longer partners. It's
a total 360, because right now we have the Trump administration saying that we need to create a space force in order to counter Russia and China because they're launching weapons into space. But it's interesting because today we learned that Russia and China today agreed on a treaty to guarantee not to militarize space. And this comes after Russia has said that they don't want an arms race in space and that they're willing to cooperate with any other country that also agrees with them.
The next space race, and a crowded one at that. Michele Greenstein, as usual. Good report. Thorough. Thank you. I'm Rick Sanchez. You found us on YouTube, and that's awesome. But you know what? I'm also live every night at 7 and 8 p.m. Eastern on DirecTV and Dish and cable and satellite, the RT app, and Pluto TV. I'll see you there.